If someone vanishes today, they leave behind this massive glowing digital footprint.
Oh, absolutely. Cell phone pings everywhere.
Right, we're talking credit card swipes, Ring cameras on every porch, GPS data baked right into your car.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to be completely unseen now.
Exactly. But what happens when you strip all of that technology away? Like, what happens when a person's entire footprint consists of nothing but high society store accounts, the memory of a passing friend, and literally the clothes on their back?
It becomes a very different kind of puzzle.
It really does. So let's get right into the timeline because the mechanics of her final day are just crucial. It's December 12th, 1910. The day starts off completely boringly normal.
Mundane in the most privileged sense of the word, really.
Right.
Dorothy Arnold was 25. She was a recent graduate of Bryn Mawr College, and her family was essentially American royalty.
Yeah, very old money.
Exactly. They were direct descendants of the Mayflower passengers. They were listed prominently in the social register, and they lived in this massive, sprawling home at 108 East 79th Street.
A completely different world.
For sure.
Mm.
Her father, Francis, was a wildly wealthy perfume importer, and her uncle was actually a former United States Supreme Court justice.
So, extremely high profile. And around 11 a.m., Dorothy tells her mother she's heading out to shop for a dress. Her younger sister Marjorie has a debutante party coming up, and her mother actually offers to go with her, but Dorothy politely declines. And I want to pause on what she was wearing, because this wasn't, a casual outfit. She was dressed to be highly visible, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
in that echelon of society, walking down Fifth Avenue was a performance. You were there to be seen by your peers.
To make a statement.
Yes. She wore a custom tailor-made blue serge suit, lapis lazuli earrings, and a large black fox muff.
Oh, wow.
And most notably, she was wearing a very distinctive Baker-style black velvet hat. It was made by a high-end milliner named Genevieve.
Okay, so very specific.
Very. It featured 2 blue velvet roses and an Alice blue lining. This is definitely not an outfit you could easily blend into a crowd wearing.
Right, you'd stand out. So she walks from her home down to Park in Tilford at 59th Street. She charges a half-pound box of chocolates to her family's account. Then she walks another 32 blocks south to Brentano's bookstore at 27th Street.
And at Brentano's, she purchases a humor book called Engaged Girl Sketches.
Again, on the account.
Exactly. She doesn't pay cash. She puts it on the family account. The clerks at both of these high-end stores later noted she was perfectly polite, in good spirits, and acting completely normal.
Then, right outside the bookstore, she runs into her friend, Gladys King. They stand on the sidewalk chatting about Marjorie's upcoming debutante party. Gladys eventually has to leave to meet her mother for lunch. She turns back, and Dorothy waves goodbye. Twice.
Right.
And that cheerful wave on a crowded sidewalk is the absolute last time anyone ever sees Dorothy Arnold.
It's chilling. By 2 p.m., she has vanished.
Yeah.
Completely off the map.
I cannot get past the sheer logistics of that. We know exactly where she was until the early afternoon. Her footprint was heavily documented by her wealthy friends in these store credit accounts.
Very public.
Right. But the real mystery, the part that fundamentally altered the trajectory of this entire case, begins with how her family reacted when the sun went down and her bedroom was empty.
Because logic dictates panic.
Right.
A desperate call to the police.
Obviously.
But instead, the Arnold household descends into absolute silence.
It's so weird.
When Dorothy misses dinner, the family doesn't alert the authorities. At midnight, a friend named Elsie Henry calls the house to check on Dorothy. Dorothy's mother answers the phone and actively lies.
Wow.
She tells Elsie that Dorothy is home, but that she's gone to bed with a headache.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Treat this like a modern listener would. If a daughter doesn't come down for dinner, the police are called immediately.
Yeah, without hesitation.
So didn't the Arnold family's absolute obsession with the social register and, protecting their pristine reputation actively destroy the most critical 24 hours of this investigation?
Oh, it destroyed the investigation. Yes, absolutely. But we have to understand the societal mechanics driving that decision.
Okay.
For the elite of the 1910s, publicity was a highly dangerous commodity. You wanted your name in the society pages for a charity gala, sure. But a scandal could ruin a family's standing permanently?
Right, it's a double-edged sword.
Completely. The press had just started realizing the massive financial potential of reporting on the private lives and, frankly, the moral failings of the wealthy. The Arnolds weren't just afraid of a kidnapper, they were terrified of becoming public entertainment.
So it's almost like they treated her disappearance not as a crime scene, but as a corporate PR crisis. They were trying to plug a leak rather than find a victim.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
Instead of the NYPD, they secretly hire a family lawyer, a young guy named John S. Keith.
Oh, okay.
He spends weeks quietly searching hospitals, jails, and morgues across New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. He's operating in the shadows, trying to find her without tipping off the press.
Unbelievable.
And when he turns up nothing, the family quietly hires the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Now, the Pinkertons were legendary, but how do you conduct a nationwide manhunt in 1910 while demanding absolute secrecy?
Through immense resources and sheer manpower, the Pinkertons deployed agents to scour transatlantic ocean liners, literally checking passenger manifests for variations of her name.
Yeah.
They discreetly searched marriage records across multiple states, operating on the theory that she might have eloped.
Okay, so they are looking hard.
They are. And during this secret investigation, lawyer John Keith searches Dorothy's room and finds something highly alarming.
What was it?
Burned papers in her fireplace and promotional folders for transatlantic steamships sitting right on her desk.
And even with burned documents, they still don't call the cops. They waited a staggering 6 weeks before they finally broke down and went to the NYPD. 6 entire weeks.
Hard to fathom.
By that point, any physical trail on the street was ice cold. But what the Pinkertons and the lawyer found in her room hints at why the family was so desperate to handle this internally. Because Dorothy Arnold was leading a massive double life.
She really was. Behind her strict father's back, Dorothy was meticulously building an identity completely separate from her family's wealth. She desperately wanted to be a writer.
Right?
She had formally asked her father if she could move to an apartment in Greenwich Village to pursue a literary career.
And her father shut that down immediately. He told her, a good writer can write anywhere. It is just a crushing dismissal of her independence.
It is. The entire family openly mocked her literary ambitions. Because of this stifling environment, she actually went to the post office and rented a secret P.O. box just to receive correspondence and rejection letters from magazines.
Oh.
Yeah. She had recently submitted a short story called Poinsettia Flames to McClure's magazine, which they ultimately rejected.
You know, that is the 1910 equivalent of a teenager today having a burner phone or a secret social media account to escape a hyper-controlling household.
Correct.
She had to manufacture a space that was entirely hers. But the secret P.O. box was just the tip of the iceberg, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. The real scandal, the thing the Arnolds were terrified of the press discovering, was her clandestine romance with a 42-year-old engineer named George Griscom, Jr.
Okay. A much older man.
Yes. He still lived with his parents in Pittsburgh, and the Arnolds found him completely unsuitable. They absolutely forbade the match.
But Dorothy found a way around them. And the logistics of this are fascinating. In September 1910, just a few months before she vanished, she lied to her parents, claiming she was visiting a college friend in Boston. But instead, she spent a secret week in a hotel with George. And to finance this romantic getaway without using her family's monitored accounts, she pawned $500 worth of family jewelry.
Which was a tremendous amount of money at the time.
Huge.
Her family eventually discovered the pawn tickets, and the fallout was explosive. But Dorothy continued to write to George in secret. So you can see the family's dilemma.
Yeah.
When they finally go to the police 6 weeks after her disappearance, they know they are essentially handing a lit stick of dynamite to the press. They
Yeah.
have to throw all of Dorothy's secrets, the pawn jewelry, the older boyfriend, the secret P.O. box, to a media landscape that was absolutely starving for elite scandal.
And the media didn't just report it, they devoured it. I mean, the 6-week silence didn't just delay the investigation, it fundamentally broke it. It created a vacuum of facts, and the press rushed in to fill that vacuum with pure sensation.
Absolutely.
When Francis Arnold finally held a press conference, he was irate. He claimed Dorothy had been murdered by Raiders and her body thrown into the Central Park Reservoir.
A theory the police instantly dismantled. It was 21 degrees that week. The reservoir was frozen solid.
Right.
You couldn't throw anything into it.
Right.
Francis also used the press conference to take a very pointed shot at George Griscom, lashing out at young men who have nothing to do.
The press took that family drama and just ran with it. But how the story was covered depended entirely on who was buying the newspaper.
This is a core focus of Kara Ginter's thesis, and it is a brilliant analysis of the era. The media coverage fractured entirely along class lines.
Right, tell me about that.
Well, you had the New York Times, whose target audience was the upper crust. They treated the story with immense respect and dignity. They called it a tragedy, they focused strictly on the official statements from the family,
Oh.
and they framed Dorothy as a victim of circumstance.
But then you look at papers like The Evening World, which was aimed squarely at the working class reader. They threw respectability out the window.
Oh, completely.
They leaned completely into sensation and what they framed as elite female deviancy. They didn't just report the news, they turned Dorothy Arnold into a soap opera character.
What's fascinating here is how they commodified her. The Evening World literally published detailed sketches of Dorothy's outfit so working-class girls could copy her fashion on the cheap.
Wow.
And they became absolutely fixated on the $25 to $30 she had in her purse that day.
Cause to the readers of the New York Times, $30 was pocket money for a Tuesday afternoon of shopping. But to a factory worker reading The Evening World, that wasn't shopping money.
No, not at all.
That was the equivalent of several weeks' wages. It was essentially an entire severance package. The working class papers framed that $30 as escape money. It fueled this fantasy that Dorothy had the financial means to stage a grand defection from the Gilded Age.
And Ginter's thesis points out the darker reality beneath all of this. During the Progressive Era, when working-class women, immigrant women, or women of color went missing in New York, the press completely ignored them.
Just silence.
Right. Or they instantly dismissed them as quote-unquote insane. But when a wealthy white woman went missing, she was categorized into one of two highly profitable narratives.
Which were?
She was either a deviant rebelling against her restrictive society or a damsel in distress victimized by the grim, dark city.
It's almost the moment we see the invention of true crime as a customizable product. The wealthy bought papers that sold them reassurance about their status, and the working class bought papers that sold them a fantasy of elite rebellion. But that rabid, unregulated speculation created an environment where every single rumor was amplified to a deafening roar. Which brings us to the theories of what actually happened. Because without a body, the public just crowdsourced the investigation. Let's look at theory number 1, suicide.
Right. And George Griscom himself leaned toward this. Dorothy had written him a very bleak letter after her manuscript was rejected by McClure's. She wrote, "Failure stares me in the face. All I can see ahead is a long road with no turning. Mother will always think an accident has happened."
That is heavy.
Yeah. There was also a mysterious, undisclosed package delivered to her while she was visiting a friend in Washington, D.C. over Thanksgiving, just weeks before she vanished. People theorize it contained something lethal.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me because I have to aggressively challenge the suicide theory.
Okay, why?
If someone is severely depressed, feeling completely trapped by their family and planning to end their life over a rejected short story, why are they at Brentano's buying a book called Engaged Girl Sketches?
A humor book.
Right. Why are they cheerfully buying a custom dress for a younger sister's party? That behavior completely contradicts the profile of someone planning to disappear into the reservoir. Does that contradiction point more toward a carefully planned escape or toward foul play?
That contradiction is exactly why historians struggle with the suicide theory. And it leads directly to the second major theory, which involves a deeply tragic secret.
The abortion theory?
Yes. Rumors circulated heavily that Dorothy had become pregnant during her clandestine meetings with George and sought an abortion. Keep in mind, this was entirely illegal and highly dangerous in 1910. The theory points to an underground clinic in Bellevue, Pennsylvania, run by a Dr. C.C. Meredith.
A clinic ominously known in the local press as the House of Mystery.
Precisely. And years later, a doctor who worked there, Dr. H.E. Lutz, actually testified in an unrelated case that Meredith had confessed to him. Meredith allegedly claimed Dorothy Arnold had come to the clinic, died due to a botched procedure, and that her body was subsequently burned in the clinic's industrial furnace.
That is horrific. Did the authorities investigate that specific claim?
Her father publicly called the story completely ridiculous and refused to engage with it. But many modern sleuths find it highly plausible given her secret rendezvous with George and her desperate need to protect her reputation from absolute ruin.
With the police sidelined for the first 6 weeks, did any credible leads surface from the actual criminal underworld? Because that brings up the third major theory, murder and extortion.
Yes, it does. In 1916, an inmate in a Rhode Island prison named Edward Glenorris made a shocking claim to the authorities. He stated that back in December 1910, he was paid $250 to bury a woman's body in a cellar in New Rochelle, New York.
Okay.
He claimed he was hired by an acquaintance named Little Louie and a wealthy, well-dressed man known only as Doc.
And the physical descriptions Glenoris provided of this doc remarkably matched George Griscom Jr. Glenoris even claimed to have recognized the dead woman as Dorothy Arnold, specifically identifying a unique signet ring she always wore.
It sounded like the definitive break in the case.
It really does.
But when police brought in shovels and excavated the cellars of the specific homes he pointed out in New Rochelle, they found absolutely nothing. Just dirt.
Wow.
Yeah. Human memory, especially the claims of convicts looking to trade information for a reduced sentence, is notoriously unreliable.
But the institutional chaos around this case doesn't stop there. Fast forward to 1921, Captain Ayers of the NYPD Missing Persons Bureau is giving a public lecture to an audience, and he casually drops an absolute bombshell.
Oh, this part is wild.
He claims from the podium that the Dorothy Arnold case had been solved and that the family had known her true fate for quite some time.
And the fallout from that statement was massive. The Arnold family vehemently denied it, calling the police captain an outright liar. Ayers quickly backtracked the very next day to the newspapers, claiming his words were taken out of context and misquoted.
But you don't just accidentally say that. It leaves this massive, lingering shadow over the entire history of the case. Did the family, through the Pinkertons or their lawyer, discover a truth so deeply scandalous, an abortion, an elopement, a secret life, that they preferred to let the world think she was simply gone forever?
We may never have definitive proof, but the aftermath for the Arnold family was undeniably tragic. Francis Arnold spent an estimated $250,000 trying to find his daughter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a staggering fortune in the 1910s. Both parents passed away in the early 1920s. And in Francis's will, he explicitly left Dorothy out, stating on the legal document that he was satisfied that she is not alive.
The story lived on, though. It became a cultural touchstone, even inspiring a 1952 television play called The Thin Air.
It's a haunting legacy. For anyone listening to this, it's worth deeply reflecting on how society's expectations can become an invisible trap. Dorothy was stifled by her class and her gender. And ultimately, that same class structure dictated how her tragedy was processed, investigated, and remembered. Her privilege bought her a massive private search. But the societal expectations attached to that very same privilege are exactly what hindered the investigation during its most crucial window of time.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword. The very thing that made her powerful made her utterly vulnerable. Which leaves me with one final thought I want you to mull over today. Throughout her entire life, Dorothy was completely defined and controlled by her visibility.
Absolutely.
By her family's elite status, by her name printed in the social register, by the high-fashion clothes she was expected to wear down Fifth Avenue.
She was a woman who desperately wanted to be a writer, to author her own stories, but her family repeatedly told her she had no voice.
Exactly. So what if her disappearance wasn't a tragedy at all? What if it was the ultimate act of authorship? Did Dorothy Arnold use society's inability to truly see her as an independent human being to write her own ending? Maybe she transformed herself from a trapped, highly visible heiress into an uncatchable ghost, leaving no digital footprint, no paper trail, just an empty space where society expected her to be.